is 6:01, and I will call the Bucyrus City Joint Regular Committee meeting to order. Members present are Mark McKeever, Kevin Myers, James Mee, C. Aaron Sherrick, Doug Fote, Lisa Alsep. Bruce Truca has telephoned to notify that he's running a few minutes late, so he will join us momentarily. Item number one, the joint regular committee meeting was called to order by myself at 6:01 p.m. Item two, public participation. Does anybody have anything that they wishes to address the committees about this evening? If so, step to the podium, state your name, and go on with your business.
Elwood Gephardt, mainly for the public lands and buildings, so if you wouldn't mind passing, you can take one, but that's what it's mainly for. Since you own the Picking Park, I found it necessary to come and ask for your permission. James Patrick, who has the new owner of the Copper Kettle Works, talked to me when I had a project done there and said, you know, I'd like to enhance Bucyrus if I could, and Picking Park, which is right next to me, I've got copper kettles that could be used there for planters, and I'd like to, you know, get things started there. And he's got many plans for his other office and the factory itself to make improvements on doing that. So what I want to do is improve the park with enhancements, and I'd like to do that with the chart you've got in front of you there, with the copper kettle. He is willing to change those into planters, the right liners and so forth, and fasten those into the ground so that they're secure and can't be moved. And then there would be a sign. The sign is the second page, what's to appear on the sign. Picking Park, and James will get laser cut the letters in copper in the design for that sign. And I've talked to the Kiwanis, and they discussed it a little bit today, that I know that they take care of this Picking Park, and they're willing to go along and what we need to do for that. They're going to decide a little later on whether they want to put some money into helping pay for the sign. But all of the copper kettles, all of the lettering for the sign, James Patrick is going to pay for that. So that's the basic idea. So we're trying to see how we can enhance, you know, just that area for him as well as for the city. And this is my suggestion, and I need your approval to do that. I also checked with him because I know one thing you're concerned about is if in 10 years it doesn't look good, what's going to happen? Who's going to take care of it? And James has said that he would put it back to the state it is now if it ever gets to that point. So I've tried to cover all the points that are necessary, and if you have any questions, comments, why certainly encourage those at this time.
I actually do have a question.
Okay.
On the sign.
Mike?
Oh, sorry.
Who's Mike?
Okay, on the sign where it's got the two drums, has he thought of anything else to put there instead of the drums? Or the copper kettle, timpani and the copper kettle? Like the history of the Picking family and the park and the business he now owns?
No, we haven't really discussed that, and this is not hard and fast, right? Yeah.
I say, because that's just, there's so much about the history of that place that it kind of would be neat, like.
Wouldn't to have.
Can I speak for a second?
Yeah.
I got some insider knowledge here because I spent, gosh, don't make me sing, John. But I spent the day in the vintage baseball game playing with James that day and talking to him a little bit about this from the Kiwanis perspective too, being a Kiwanian and everything. And the main idea is to draw the attention to that area. His plan is he wants to revamp the entire inside of the Picking copper kettle, in the sense, keep it to the historic nature that it is, but he wants to add on to the back of it and create better tourism through it. So it's more of a flowing tourism through the place. So that way the back end, he actually plans on, he said he wants to try and add blacksmithing in because he gets into that as another area of tourism through there, and then a better gift shop in the back. So I think the idea of this is just to draw the people there and then take them through the tour on the inside to give them all the history and stuff. I do know as far as the aspect of, taking care and maintaining this once it's in place, our Kiwanis Club does maintain and take care of Picking Park. We mow the grass, break the leaves, do all that stuff yearly. So as far as the maintenance of the park, that's already taken care of by our club anyways. As far as from our club perspective, we're definitely on board with this. Like Elwood said, we're just waiting to have our board meeting to discuss whether or not we're going to be able to put any funds forward to help them out with the project. But it looks like it's, like I said, it's kind of just a way to draw more attention to that area and highlight the fact that the Copper Kettle is there, so that way they can then, use that to get people in there and draw them in. So that's just all I had. Sorry.
And Dane Kennedy is willing to help get it all organized and get it done right, being a professional landscaper.
Very well.
Okay.
Sounds good. Do we need
All right.
legislation?
I think the administration has the ability to okay that without any legislation. Is that correct?
Well, when I talked to Mr. Gephardt, I said it probably needs to go through lands and buildings.
Okay.
For them to approve it, since it is on city property.
So I don't know if parks are an open project for you, and if not, we can refer it at the next council meeting so that you can address it then. Or if it's an open project, you guys could discuss it tonight either way.
I was thinking some of the parks were on there.
I thought they were too.
Yeah, because we were just talking about them.
Okay.
So I
All
don't
right.
see why we wouldn't just refer it this
Okay.
evening.
Very good. All right, the committee will discuss that when they get into their item of business.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to address the committees this evening? Okay, then we'll move on to the order of committee business, and I will yield to Mr. Truca with the Service Committee.
Okay, I guess I'll let Mr. Wagner take over.
Well, as you all know, we've been working with the US EPA on our first phase of the storm and sewer separation, and we're getting, well, we actually submitted our phase 2, and I have Laura McGinnis here from Arcadius, which they spearhead that and are our communications with the US EPA. So she's here to kind of give you an update of where we're at, or where we were, where we're at, and where we think we're going to try to head, as long as the US EPA is agreeable and you guys down the road. We'll have more financial information later before. This is just a brief overview. So I thought it was good for her to come and give you guys an update.
Will somebody be able to press the button?
Tell me when we just hit the end button. Okay, yeah, okay. Just let me know.
Mic does not work, is that correct, John?
It does. That was working.
It works, okay. Hello, thank you. I'm Laura McGinnis from Arcadis, as Mr. Wagner said, and I have a presentation. I do not have handouts, but I have a presentation we can run through to give you some background of where the city has been to get to this point, what we're doing, and what's next. So advance to the next slide. So this is the City of Bucyrus collection system. You'll see it, I know it's from a distance, but streets with the Sandusky River running through. The city currently has 22 combined sewer overflows. That number may have dropped. I believe one was recently closed. But this is a presentation we gave to US EPA a couple months ago. And the combined sewer system, and I have another slide to better explain how it works, but it does, it conveys your sanitary flow to the treatment plant. And in the case of wet weather, the majority of your system still accepts that wet weather, and it's conveyed to the plant up to the point it exceeds the plant capacity and it spills out some of the CSOs. And I believe the next slide is another schematic of this system, just a generic schematic showing the three main trunk sewers. There's the main interceptor that runs parallel to the river, the sewer from the northwest trunk that currently doesn't have a lot of flow contributing to it, and then the southern trunk interceptor along Southern, and it collects flow from the southern half of the city. And the next slide, I believe, talks about what is a combined sewer overflow. So we've got In gray, that's the original sewer. Originally, when the sewers were built, they went directly to the river. This is many, many, many years ago. And at some point, it was determined, that's not a great idea to just send all the sewage to the river. So that's the definition of an interceptor. They were added along the river to intercept the flow to get it to the treatment plant. And that's where the flow initially goes through the gray to the river. Now it can drop into the orange pipe into the yellow interceptor and go to the plant. But during high flow, when it exceeds the capacity, it will overtop a weir or an elevated pipe and spill into the river. And that, if you go to the next slide, I believe it talks about the regulatory history. That's in 1972, the Clean Water Act spearheaded the beginning of this revolution of let's take care of the environment. There was enough going on in the 70s that this act became law. And also part of that is what we call the NPDES, the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System. That is also a permit that the wastewater superintendent maintains on a regular basis. Also, that is tied to the performance of the collection system. And buried in the Clean Water Act also is the combined sewer overflow policy. So there's a lot of regulatory reasons that CSOs are being reduced and that we need to be careful at how we approach this with US EPA in terms of reducing volume and meeting the requirements of this law. Next slide, please. So this one is small, but I want to give you even more background on what the city's done. So I've been involved with the combined sewer system in Bucyrus since 2008. That's when we were Malcolm Purney at the time, we became Arcadis. We were working with several previous administrations on repairing and rebuilding relationships with the regulatory agencies. So prior to 2010 and prior to our involvement, Ohio EPA was managing your system, or at least overseeing the reporting and documentation of overflows. It was all Ohio EPA. And at that time, there was limited progress made from the city side and Ohio EPA side to the point that US EPA came in and took over. And that's where things got tougher and stricter. And that's where we got involved. An attorney brought us in saying, you have experience with other clients of this size. Can you help Bucyrus navigate how to get to an agreement with US EPA? So in between 2008, 2010, that's when now you fell under US EPA. We evaluated alternatives, looked at cost. It was a several-year process to get to the point where we began submitting a proposed plan to US EPA, and that was submitted in 2010. And it kind of stagnated again on both sides. And there's, nobody wants to spend this much money. But between 2011 and 2015, negotiations slowed down and then picked up again in 2013, 14, 15. And it actually worked out, I think, in the city's favor, because at that point, US EPA was starting to look at these plans they had forced on City of Akron, City of Cleveland, Cincinnati MSD, said, you need a 20-year plan, you need to spend a lot of money, here's what you need to do. And there's a lot of pushback on that. And that's when they started getting to the medium and small communities. US EPA was turning the corner a little bit and saying, let's do a phased approach. Let's let communities do a chunk of work, reevaluate the benefits, and then make the next set of plans. So you guys actually fell in line at a perfect time, because in 2010, they wanted you to have a 20-year plan. By 2015, they said, let's do a 3-phased approach. We're right now at the end of phase 1. So in that sense, it benefited you greatly, because it gives us options to step back and say, are we on the right path? What's the best way to spend money to meet the next phase that's required? So 2015 to present, we've been implementing the phase 1 projects. And Mayor, I think the next slide talks about what we've done. So some of the projects in phase 1 were pretty straightforward. If you've walked along the river, you'll notice there's signs at every CSO now. Just, general phone number, warning that this is a combined sewer overflow point. That was an easy requirement that US EPA asked for. The city also embarked on sewer inspections, where they actually physically routed a camera along the main interceptor up by Carly's Bratwurst all the way to the plant as much as they could. There was some blockages in there. And also on Buffalo Run, on the river that's essentially put into a sewer. They televised the whole section, and that gives us, one, an understanding of the condition of the pipes, and two, identifies any blockages or anything that may be causing backups. And there actually was a blockage on the main interceptor, which was removed, which was ideal to find and remove. It had helped overall the performance of the system. The major projects that were probably more visible to the residents in the city were along Southern. The sewer separation projects along the eastern half of the city on Southern and Hopley, those were pretty extensive, and the goal there was to separate sanitary flow from the runoff from the houses and from the streets. And that was part of phase one. Same thing up on Plymouth in conjunction with ODOT. That was a great project to get their assistance with while they were redoing roadway work, could separate some sewers. And then the Upper Buffalo Stormwater Detention Basin on Southern, that was part of the phase one project. So there's a lot of work that went into phase one. All of this was, like I said, a phase one. It's not the end goal. It leads into the next phase two and phase three. So if you go to the next slide, please. And as a bonus, and we wanted to make sure US EPA recognized this, the city on their own, without being in a legal document to do these projects, also did additional sewer separation to benefit the city. This was an area Crawford, West Mary, and West Perry, and then the Whetstone and East Mansfield Street. And recently, the city did do some sewer dredging to try to eliminate some of the bottlenecks on the river on the Mansfield Bridge, which would help bring the river level down and help reduce the potential for river to get back into the system. So the city's done some proactive projects also that EPA found favorable. So the benefits observed in phase one was, like I said, removing a large root mass debris in the interceptor actually allowed the flow to get to the treatment plant as planned, but also prevented unnecessary backups into the out CSOs. So that was a definite plus. And the separation work that's been done to date, Tim Wood at the treatment plant has noticed that the flow rates he gets at the plant have started to drop quicker. I mean, he's still getting a lot of wet weather, but it doesn't extend as long. So he can return his plant to a normal flow quicker, which is ideal for energy efficiency, chemical cost, a lot of reasons. So that's been a benefit he observed. And I think some of the benefits that I've noticed in working with the city is you guys seem to better understand the system, which is ultimately what US EPA wants you to not only meet the requirements of the Clean Water Act, but also maintain and be proactive in your system. And part of that is also the notice decreased in water and basement complaints during wet weather events. So, and through phase one, we met the requirements that EPA had set out as far as reporting on a 6-month basis and having discussions with them. That was all met. So the next slide, please. So phase two, the requirements from US EPA in phase two were to develop a plan that was 5 years and removed 50% of the volume that spills into the river. That's a very lofty goal. In addition to the phase two plan, what we're making sure is considered is other improvements in the system, specifically at the wastewater treatment plant, that will need to be done independent of what US EPA asks for in the collection system. So there's some significant funds that may need to be spent there. And then next slide, so what we have been working on in the last year is developing alternatives in a plan, and we did submit a document to US EPA last week, 2 weeks ago, outlining the feasible alternatives. We did not negotiate cost. We're still in the process of reviewing what's financially affordable, what it means to the rate structure. But some of the plans were to evaluate the river intrusion, if it is sneaking back into the system, any large inflow sources that could easily be redirected to a ditch, and we'll continue doing the 6-month reports. The proposed improvement projects, like I said, are, if we do find there's river intrusion, we need to mitigate that. And the pictures on the right are the head wall of 2 CSO gates. And you can see on the lower one, you can hardly see the gate because it's submerged. And this was not taken during a storm. This was several days after a wet weather event. So there's some low-hanging fruit that could be could go after that I think will have a significant impact on the total volume the city's seeing on their CSOs and getting to the treatment plant. One of the other big proposed projects is to develop a wet weather treatment facility at the wastewater treatment plant. So this would be a separate facility at the plant that would only operate during wet weather. But that is a significant measure to reduce overflow volume, because if it can be treated there and then released to the river, that satisfies US EPA's requirement as far as treatment of wet weather. And then we always are continuing to look at additional stormwater separation in the system, because that's going to continue to be part of every phase. Timeline, like I said, a draft project list was submitted on June 29th as required. We did ask for more than 5 years, because financially and in terms of executing these projects, some of them are not feasible to be designed, built, constructed, verifying completeness, having the punch list done in 5 years. That's not reasonable. So we did ask for additional time, and we're still working on the financial capability analysis, and that will help us in the negotiation with US EPA on what the city can afford, and that helps defend that request for more than 5 years. And that was the financial capability analysis that was done in 2014 that led into negotiating in 2015 actually really worked in the city's favor and helped US EPA recognize what was feasible in terms of funding, rather than just mandating they built significant projects. So the next step is it's kind of in US EPA's court. They'll come back, we'll talk with them and start negotiating. And we expect phase 1 technically ends at the end of 2022. So the projects we're listing here would start as early as 2023. And with that, are there any questions? Yes?
I noticed that the next phase of the project, even though it's still phase 1, will be going down Woodlawn Avenue next, right?
That originally was considered as part of phase 2. Right now, that is not a defined project yet. What we've learned from the results from phase 1, because we did actually do flow metering again to see what the benefit was and where the areas are that still have significant wet weather problems. And it was determined that identifying if the river is influencing the system was a larger project to go after than Woodlawn. But yes, initially we thought Woodlawn would be one of the phase 2 projects, but right now that's not part of phase 2. It could get negotiated back in, though. That's all to be discussed with US EPA. So, okay. Any other questions?
I will be anxiously awaiting
Yeah.
to hear what the damage is going to be.
And we will do what we can to negotiate something reasonable and fair. I mean, we've talked about, how does US EPA treat you versus City of Cleveland? They do understand, and I think the mayor has pled his case many times to them that, we have to be respectful of the city of this size.
Are there other communities that are comparable to our size that are maybe a few steps ahead of us, and what have you learned from them, seeing how they're getting, where their next phases are going?
I know a little bit about Lima, although we didn't work on it. I feel like it was Lima or Findlay in that area. They got lumped into that whole 20-year plan. And now they're wishing they're actually trying to go back and say, does this, what we said we would do in year 17, does that still make sense? What I've learned from other communities of all sizes is keeping an open dialogue with US EPA is important. Right now, we have a good relationship with them. They've turned over a few people, so we actually, in our presentation to them, gave them some background on the city, so we're not just a point on the map. They understand what COVID has done, what, the loss of industry has done. And hopefully that follows into the negotiation process, that we can't afford what Columbus can afford, so.
Thank you.
I got a question, yeah.
Yes.
So when will we have the negotiations come back to us as a city council?
That's a good question. I know that we are scheduled, I believe, Jeff, to have 3 meetings. The EPA has asked when the 3 meetings that we will be discussing this with you are. But then I think that's when the negotiations begin.
Okay.
Because we
I
need
was
to
gonna
get
say,
your
'cause
approval.
We, as a city council, we tried to say that we couldn't afford anything more than, $7.40 to $11 additional money per month. I mean, that,
Yeah, then this report that went into them, there is a part in there that we still have to come to you guys and say, this still has to be approved by council.
Absolutely.
This isn't anything that we're gonna get and sign. This is just a preliminary draft to them, and then we'll start negotiating. But we're trying to spread it out over the years, even maybe just to keep where we're at and not have to do anything. Like what they wanted back when it started, they wanted us to go to like $80 a month. And that's when Mayor Moore made the U.S. Department of Justice and the lawyers flew in from Chicago. And they argued about it, and we ended up getting a 5 to 7 year plan. Worked our benefit, but we'll see. These people seem to be pretty receptive, the new representatives we were talking to. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Could we get the COVID money involved in this?
I'm sorry?
Could we get the COVID money involved into this, or?
We'd love to try, yes. That's beyond me as far as how it gets allocated.
I guess the
What the
question
city
would be,
receives.
have you ever seen any other municipality use the COVID money for that type of?
From what I've seen on, I guess, the American Rescue Plan, they're looking for projects, and certainly help me, because I know you guys have looked at the numbers more closely. What I've learned is they're looking for projects that cross multiple sectors, like a project that can improve wastewater plus roads, airports plus schools. It's tricky, but there definitely is money out there we need to be chasing right now and looking at projects, how that can help the initial parts of the project. But this phase 2 technically doesn't start until 2023. So 1, that does give us time to go after some of the funds, but 2, is it too late? So if there's an opportunity to start some of the projects earlier that secures funding, that might be something we want to look at.
anybody else? Go ahead.
So he'd said Woodlawn had been on the list before, but now you guys have kind of taken it off. You said, would that be something to add on to the end of phase 1 since you've kind of finished it up? Because you could fix the road and maybe get some monies that way? Because I know a couple of the houses, the water comes up into the houses with everything over
That's
there.
Woodlawn?
Yeah, on Woodlawn.
Okay. Well, we haven't finalized the negotiation on anything. If
Well,
that's something that,
I was just looking at, if it has to be if they're trying to get the multiple crossings, I mean, that would help people's homes that are getting the water back up into there.
okay,
That help the water issues over there and the road.
Right.
Because we have to, I mean,
that is something
just an
that,
idea.
yeah, no,
Well, we went ahead and, so you know, we went ahead and put a brand-new water line in on Woodlawn because we had the understanding this project was going to be the next phase. So we hurried up and put a new water line in
Okay.
on Woodlawn Avenue.
okay. Well, we take that into account. We're still negotiating, and if that's something that can be, it certainly would help, because I know we looked at that.
Because
I
we
wanna say
also,
12 years ago, 10 years ago.
this is old stuff, but I mean, we had the understanding that by doing Woodlawn, that was going to help the Buffalo sewer, which runs directly under this building and underneath the post office and a series of homes that goes right underneath, and so.
Well, ultimately, the idea is to do significant separation on the areas tributary to the Buffalo Run. With the requirement they gave us for phase 2 of significantly reducing volume, that wet weather facility definitely meets that criteria. Separation is expensive. But phase 3, if not negotiated in phase 2, phase 3 needs to be more separation on the Buffalo, for sure.
Was there some talk that at one time that we were going to, I don't know, try to utilize the old sewer system and change it around on Woodlawn? I mean, wasn't that part of the project that
It could be.
they were going to utilize the old section as the storm
A storm.
and install new sewer lines for sanitary purposes?
So in the projects that were constructed already, some were new storm, some were new sanitary, depended on the cost, the depth. When you install new sanitary, they're deeper than new storm. But if the existing pipes are too large, you don't want to route only sanitary flow to a large pipe because it will stagnate and you'll get
Right.
smell and odor complaints. So it's usually a case-by-case basis during the detailed design. So we will make a plan to do a separation project, and then the design engineers, whoever that's awarded to, will investigate and say, okay, is it more cost-effective, or is it, or is it more hydraulically effective to repurpose the existing pipe as a sanitary or as a storm? But yes, the pipe will be used for something, the existing pipe will.
Okay.
All right,
Well, thank you.
thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Just as a food for thought, maybe we could get Lynn in here sometime. I'll tell you what, if we could ever get Lynn and have him bring his computer and hook it up, he's fascinating to listen to, Lynn McKeever. He can tell us how the highest point of Bucyrus is out on Kincora Drive, and all the water flows into, that's where the Buffalo sewer starts, is right there on Whetstone Street. And all that water flows in, from the east going west.
Up to about, a month ago, Dave, Lynn has been involved with Arcadius and Jeff Dunn, and they've been working on different alternatives to get the biggest bang for our dollar to help cut out CSO activation. So they've looked at a couple of smaller projects that we can be doing up until '23, when we might start our next major project, to try to help a little bit with the CSO activation. But Lynn has been involved all the way up to about a month ago. He's been in every meeting with Laura. We've been having meetings about once every 2 weeks
Yeah, at least.
to get this submitted to the EPA, so.
Oh, that's wonderful. I mean, it's just fantastic, the knowledge that he has.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I better just be quiet, I guess. I mean, it's just so exciting because he showed me pictures a couple years ago of how that was an open drainage ditch, and when they built that subdivision, they covered it in. They just filled it in,
And then they wonder why their homes flooded.
yeah, and then it's like everybody's got water in their basements because they filled the drainage ditch in. So, all right, well, thank you. Thanks for coming. Thanks for everybody to explain. So, okay, next order of business for service is approval of minutes. But the minutes, I know we had went through the minutes. We offered corrections. The corrections weren't made. The minutes are, they got the wrong heading on them. Instead of having service, they got health and safety on them. I guess what I need to do is just take those corrections and actually see if we can't get them retyped, and we will discuss them at a later meeting. So, and as far as open projects list, I'm not going to mention anything. We went through the open projects list in the past, and we eliminated everything that was needed to be eliminated at that point in time. So, if anyone else has anything for service, go ahead.
I was gonna say, when it comes to open projects, we all need a list again, so we can cross off what didn't get crossed off before that we voted out. Because
Okay.
I was told some of those things weren't removed. If you don't mind for the next time, sorry, Rebecca.
Okay. Okay. And since I have Mr. Wagner here, I responded to a resident, and they live on the corner of, well, their house is, it's on the corner of Ethel and Reed Street. And it was last night when we were having a lot of rain, heavy rain. The sewer drop has dropped. I mean, the sewer grate has tilted, and so a lot of the water is running by instead of actually going into the sewer. So, yeah, so it's right on, well, Ethel runs south off of Reed, and so it's on the southeast corner. So I was out there last night, looked at it, so.
Jeff,
I'm gonna take care of it.
I have another one. 210
One was the max, no, go ahead.
210 Franklin Court. They have and I'm not sure, but it's a tube coming up in their yard, and there's water flowing up out of it. In the winter, apparently, it causes a bunch of ice on Franklin Court, but in the summer, it's just a gurgling brook. But there's water coming up out of it, so, and it's in their yard, and it's round, so.
Okay, we'll check it out.
I asked if there was smell, because it came from a neighbor, and she said no. So,
Sounds like this might be a sump pump.
something,
One of these days.
We'll have to check it out.
okay.
All right, well, I'm going to adjourn at whatever time.
6:38.
6:38, okay, thank you.
Okay, and I'm gonna call Public Lands and Buildings to order at 6:38 PM. First thing on here was, public parking lots.
Yes, I have Mr. David here from McKeever, and I think he's got a pass out for just 7 of the council members in the back of the car. I have the one in. Would you guys like a copy? I can go make you a copy. Bill, or take one and pass it to whoever needs them.
He might have made copies.
You only made 8.
I made 8.
You've got another? I'll share if you want.
So send some over that way, we can share one.
Okay.
That's right.
So in case-
Before Dave gets into his explanation, he will get to a column on there that he did add on the service garage. Kind of a Jeff Dunn wish list item, since we're not moving anytime soon from out there. We've been putting off paving it, and I think it's only part of it, right, Dave?
That's only part, yeah.
So he'll go over that, but that's the 4th item on the list, so.
All right, as Jeff said, I'm Dave Engel. I'm an engineer with McKeever & Associates, and I personally appreciate the words about Lynn. The guy is he knows everything about this town.
Sorry, what was your name again?
Dave Engel,
Engel.
E-N-G-L-E.
Thank you.
So what we have here, we've developed plans and estimates for work on the 3 parking lots, Lot 6, which is the lot beside Picking Park, Lot 5, which is the lot behind the American Legion, and Lot 3, which is the lot behind Dillinger's and the Crazy Fox. It's not just a mill and pave project. We are also addressing some stormwater collection, improving those in 2 of the parking lots at least. In Lot 5 and Lot 3, we'll be adding catch basins and actually changing the grade of the parking lots so that water actually drains to the catch basins.
Oh, sorry.
The lot at Picking Park, 6 or 1, depending on who you ask, but there's questions. But Picking Park's parking lot doesn't actually have any storm collection in it, but it's also very steep and slopes into I forgot the name of the street. Is that East? East Alley, okay, there you go. So East Alley, there's already a collection system in the alley that will eventually pick the water up, and it doesn't seem like it's backing up or anything. So we weren't going to actually change the grade that much in Picking Park or adding storm. What we are going to do is, leveler anyway. As you reference the north side of the parking lot, basically whatever's underneath that pavement is failed, and it's either there's a foundation of an old building keeping the pavement from settling, or the wall of the old building has failed and that part's settled. We won't know until we dig it up. But we think that the foundation from the old building is actually holding it up, and the material is settled around it. We did some core drilling in the lots. There's not much in the way of base underneath that side of the lot. So kind of thinking we've kind of paved over some stuff that maybe needs fixed. So that side of that parking lot is more or less a full replacement, taking out everything that's there, putting back good base, and then the same kind of pavement that we've been putting on the streets when we've reconstructed streets for Bucyrus. That the main benefit of that is when we do need to come back in whatever amount of time it takes to have to mill and pave those again, there's actually a wearing surface that we can take off and do and not have to rebuild them again. So we build them once. So that's Picking Park. The other side of Picking Park is very high. It's very it's got a knob. I call it the knob. I don't know. It shows up as a knob in my topo maps. But there's a lot of asphalt in that side of the parking lot. It's like 9 inches of asphalt in that side of the parking lot. So we're going to remove a whole bunch of asphalt from that side when we do, and try to mill that side down to something where everything drains and is more level. And also add a couple of ADA parking spaces, because right now you don't have anything out there, and I think you need them. So we've got 2. Well, they are small spaces. I can't do anything about the size of the spaces. The lots are small. Back from Lynn tells me that the lots were laid out as the one length of one surveyor's chain, just so you know. So can't make them any wider. So we're limited to what we've got. So the spaces are still going to be small. If you're going to bring in your full-size pickup truck, you might want to park somewhere else. But anyway, they won't be any smaller than they are today. We do change, so that's more or less Picking Park. And we've actually located the ADA spaces. There's 2 power poles. There's a light pole and a power pole in the lot right now. They're just kind of in the way. We're locating the access ways so that those things land in spaces that aren't spaces anymore. So they won't be, they're still there, but they won't be as quite in the way. Also part of that is the area beside what most people think of as an alley beside the Copper Kettle. Is not actually an alley beside the Copper Kettle. Part of that is the Copper Kettle's ground. And basically our parking lot exits into that instead of onto the alley. So we're actually dropping a couple of spaces off of that and redoing that area so that you can exit on city ground instead of exiting on the Copper Kettle's ground. There'll be a little bit of repaving there to fix up that drive that's been used for public access for a long time. And Jeff Dunn and I met with the folks at Copper Kettle, said it's basically going to be a one-time thing. We'll fix it because it's broke, but after that, it's your baby. But we'll also have room for our citizens parking in the lot to exit. So that's good. The other major modifications are in 3 and 5. Basically, we're going to take out the, because those lots have more or less been just paved over several times, there are no curbs anymore to speak of anyway. And at least in one occasion, we have reports. I don't know that I can tell, I don't know 100% that this is correct, but water flows towards some of the buildings with the lots. The Legion is particularly said this multiple times. So that's part of why we're dropping the lots and tearing out and putting back regraded properly. Water won't run back out over the sidewalks. It'll run to the catch basins and then out to the storm. There's already storm in East Alley by the Legion, and there's already storm. There's not storm at the Crazy Fox. There's still combined sanitary there. But we're going to lay out that so that when a new storm line is put in that area, it'll be easy to connect up. So, I don't know if there's any, without showing you a picture, if there's any questions,
When they do
about
put the new storm in there, is that something they're gonna have to tear up that parking lot after they've already done it?
no, it'll be in the street. Or the alley. I forget if that's an alley or a street there, but whatever. On the east side of Dillinger's, that's where the combined sewer is. There's a manhole there, and
And we're not dealing with that, that's not gonna be dealt with in this project?
we're not. Well, there's no storm sewer there yet, so that'll be somewhere else down the road. What I'm provisioning for in the design for the parking lots is that I can, without tearing up the parking lot, separate it later. Easy. The good news was on the Dillinger's building, it has roof drains that come down into the sewer now. We're going to pick those up into that too. So if we ever, actually that's not true. Let me back up. We were going to do that, but that turned out to be in a bad location. So, but it outlets out into the alley the same way the storm will. So if we can pick that building up too, if and when something's ever put in there for storm. Other major deals of reworking of sidewalks and actual curb so that we have not water running up into the over the sidewalks there. You'll have steps and ADA ramps where we need them. So. The other item Jeff mentioned was the service garage. Basically, a service garage right now, since the move's not happening to a new building, the garage lot is bad. It needs reworked. It probably wasn't installed. Well, I won't say that. It's been a long time without any love and care, and so what we're proposing is to replace a portion of the lot. So if anybody you've seen the service garage, they got the fuel depot where every basically vehicle the city has eventually hits that fuel depot at some point. It's going to be that side of the lot, basically around the fuel depot and towards the fence, towards the rail, that side. And we don't think we're going to have to tear out all of the, it's not going to be a complete full reconstruction. We think we'll be able to save at least some stone in there that's there and not have to rebuild everything. So there's a note on the estimate. You'll see 25% base replacement. I'm figuring on having to replace something, but not everything. So estimated numbers, a lot of times with paving, you're not going to know 100% what you get until you excavate it. Well, it'll go out for bid, same as all the other bids.
As you can see, the estimates have really changed of just, milling and paving them. It's a little more work now with storm and going down farther and putting a deeper base in. And so the cost has really changed. So we want to make sure that you guys understood everything that they're going to be doing. And I won't speak for the auditor, but, since we're not going to be doing anything soon out in Irving, you can use that capital outlay money we've got sitting there if you want to get them done, and we could put them all three out to bid together, or four, depending on what you guys choose you want to do.
Is this, here again, is this just a sideline benefit because we are doing some of the stuff with the drainage and everything? Will that help us maybe along with our EPA project as well? Going forward,
Maybe
not
not
right
at this
now,
time, but down the road, yeah, when we get to Dillinger's area and we can separate that, then we'll get credit for that too.
Talking about fixing them for a long time. Talking about doing something with them for a long time. We know what you've been talking about doing with it. Mark says sell.
The sidewalk. I'm gonna be quiet right now. I'm just saying, Jim and I kind of agreed, especially Lot 3, nothing against the facilities, but we could find something better than us having to put that much money in and it benefiting 3 businesses.
I have a question about that. When you say lot 3, do you mean just because there's a division between those lots, there's
It's the
the
one
lot that
next
sits
to.
behind Dillinger's, and then there's a middle lot, and then
No.
there's a lot,
Those are private.
those are
two
privately
private
owned?
ones.
two are.
Okay, well, they're in about a sad shape too.
They're actually, yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying.
you're right.
But
Where is the money coming from for this?
Capital outlay.
From selling the garage on Route 4 and selling Mary Street.
And the parking lot at Baker's?
Yes.
So it's kind of like a combined
Yeah, all
fund?
that money's in capital outlay, you have to use it for capital improvements.
Right. Okay.
But like I'm saying, $120,000 for one parking lot, that benefits 3 businesses.
3 businesses that the community use, though.
Mm-hmm.
I have tripped going up into the back of Dillinger's.
I'm,
I have, because Breezy's Pizza is there. I'm just saying, I wasn't going in the bar, I was going to get a pizza. I was going to Breezy's to get a pizza.
I guess if you look at it that way, you could say that about picking.
I think that we,
There's
yes,
3 businesses there.
yes.
I mean,
Yes.
it's the same for, it's just deciding if you want.
Do you
to have
want
a
the
nice city
community
parking lot
beautiful?
For the residents of Bucyrus and
Yes.
whatever business it might be.
Well, if you take away where they are.
Yeah.
Right. And we need
look
our
at those other
community
2 lots
pretty.
that we no longer own over there. Look how horribly they're falling apart.
where?
Right there behind Dillinger's and.
That was all privately
never-
owned. We never owned those.
Well, but that's what I'm saying, we don't own those, look at how those look, so what
Maybe
happens?
we can shame them into making their parking lots look as pretty as
Sometimes if you
ours.
fix something up, other people will
Yes,
just follow on, so
yes.
it rubs off.
Haven't you ever mowed your yard because the neighbor made you look bad because he
No,
was
because
mowing
mine's
his
always
yard?
mowed.
He's that neighbor.
I'm the one who mows.
I personally think it's something to definitely have a good discussion about, because I do agree. I mean, I understand Mark and Jim's point of view very much so, that they do benefit businesses. But I do get the point from Lisa that, those benefits are to those businesses, but they are to our community residents as well. And I guess I look at it from the standpoint of, those businesses are trying to keep their businesses looking good and paying to keep them looking nice so they can attract people in, so.
But I still have a problem with that parking lot on lot number 3 with vehicles that have not moved for.
Yes, there needs
There's
to be
a wagon
some.
that's been chained there for, I
Yeah.
know, at least 3 years. How is that possible on a
Because we
public
haven't done anything about it.
parking lot?
Well, it was reported, and it was reported to the law director, and it was given to him with photos. So
And the chains
I
are
don't know
so
who else
rusted,
we
it's
can
been
go
there for
to,
so long.
yeah. It is,
But there's other vehicles that's been sitting there
Yep.
too.
I'm trying to figure out how we can tow a car downtown for a car show, but we can't get things out of our own lots for years.
It's called enforcement.
yep,
I think it'd be a good time if you decide to redo the lot, that's gonna have to be put on the list.
yes.
You
And
can't sit there on
am I incorrect in thinking that there are people that reside there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I understand if someone has a vehicle parked there and it's there a day or two because they maybe haven't went to work or whatever, but you can't leave something parked there on a city lot for weeks, months, years,
Should be no different than you parking in front of your house. You're supposed to move it
48 hours.
every
isn't it?
48
48
hours.
hours.
Yeah.
So I think-
Is it 48 or?
But I get it. I mean, if I get the flu and I don't go anywhere for 3 or 4 days, then I understand that. But like weeks,
years.
flat tires.
I don't want to interrupt us or anything, but do we need any questions out of Dave? Because he's just standing here patiently waiting.
It's fascinating.
Sorry.
No, I didn't want to keep discussing it, but I didn't want to hold him up if we didn't need to make him stand there to answer a question.
This is an estimate. This is just a
I guess.
Well, no, the estimates have come in pretty good.
Yeah.
Bids have come under the
Yeah.
estimate,
That-
but not by a whole lot.
Is this also taking the increase in prices of things that have just went through the?
As much as we can, yes,
Right,
and
okay.
as much as we can. We have some numbers that are relatively recent for paving already, and we try to incorporate those in here, stone, that kind of thing. There's not a tremendous amount of the storm work in here. It eats up, regrading the lots is the biggest, doing a full reconstruction on the lots is the biggest chunk of the work, because basically, if you imagine the Legion lot, the lot behind the Legion with it's knobbed over between the two streets, the street and the alley. That high point's still going to be relatively high, but we're going to have two lows in between it with individual basins to catch the water and go. So that lot's going to be, well, we need 4 to 6 inches just for the curbs, so we take a lot of parking lot out to do that. It's
Probably 6 to 8 inches.
basically, what's been done in the past is just to pave, I don't even think they milled them, they just paved over them.
Right.
And so there's, and it was thin pavement to start with, so there's between 5 and 6 inches of pavement, and I'm going to eat up almost all of that regrading the lots.
Is that a parking lot that a lot of people use when they go to the movie night?
The
That's
Legion
what I'm
one?
Yeah.
Yes.
I would
See,
say that.
Yeah,
these
they
are
do.
things that the community uses.
Yeah.
I mean, picking park, I'm guilty. I'm the back door of the Pelican kind of gal.
Yep.
So
Use them quite often myself. That's
Yeah.
why I know they're a little uneven and stuff at
it's
times, so.
important.
I know that when we went to go survey the lots and check them out, that I parked on the street because I couldn't park in the lots because they were full.
Yes, yes.
Now, one thing I would mention, your sidewalks that are out there in those lots now, could be argued they're not actually sidewalks. They're a little narrow, and with no curbs, you can't walk on them. The cars park over top of them.
Right.
With curbs, and now we have in each of the lots, well, picking because it doesn't have a sidewalk, but the other two, there would be a 6-foot walk on one side of the lots, and then what I'm calling a barrier on the other side. So if you think about the lot behind the Legion, you've got the church lot on the other side of I call it the precipice, the drop-off. We're just gonna, that's a I forget the dimension on it, but it's something like 30 inches or something wide, or 36 inches wide. We're going to make that like 2.5, so it's just enough for the cars to park over. And with a curb, you won't need barricade, you won't need the park stops or anything in the lots. And then the other side will be a 6-foot sidewalk, so that even if the car's overhanging, you've got a chance of getting a walker or a scooter or a wheelchair, I guess, or whatever on the side. It'll be an actual sidewalk. It just won't be people parking as close as they can to the ivy-covered fence.
Well, and I like that too, because that's where you get somebody slips a foot on a gas pedal or a brake, and now we got damage, because there's no curb there.
Okay, do we have dumpsters located in these parking lots? At this point, they're no longer there? There's no need for eyesores, that's why I'm asking.
I think some of them behind Dillinger's and Crazy Fox, they actually got permission to move them on the other side of an island that's gonna get put there to leave them in that parking lot. But
Which
I
is
know
private
that-
property.
I think the grease pit's
Yes.
still there.
So they went to the other businesses and
Yeah.
asked to?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Because there's no sense in having,
Destroying new stuff.
right, or having something look tacky.
The other
On a
thought
brand
there
new
is,
beautiful parking lot.
if you bring them back onto our property, actually go ahead and construct a small fence with this stuff on it to hide them from the public view.
And then they would be losing parking
You
spaces.
give up a couple of spaces that way, but eyesore removed.
Okay.
So we're looking at just under $400,000. Joyce, is there $400,000 in the capital outlay for that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Does,
We sold the one building for 330.
but I'm just saying, that's,
What? 427,000.
There you go.
Won't leave much.
Okay, so what project are we setting aside on Irving Street?
it
Oh,
was the
they wanted to build a new
garage.
building.
Oh, the new garage.
Which is why we would be paving the service to help Jeff Dunn out a little bit, since we're not moving it yet.
When would it be finished?
after they're bid and let as contracts. We could bid them this year yet,
Okay, so
with approval.
But if we bid them this year, when would they start approximately?
it all depends on the contractor.
I mean,
Well, no, I mean, like the time frame that we'd be looking at. I mean, I've noticed a lot of projects that just happen to fall, I don't know, as the Bratwurst Festival commences, or, so we've got all these things blocking here, there, and everywhere, and then you're also blocking over here.
But it takes 30 days for us to post it to be bid out.
Right.
So if we approve it at the next council meeting, we're talking mid-August, it'd be after the Bratwurst Festival before it could even get awarded,
Which is
before they
awesome.
could even start, if we get it approved.
Not saying they won't be doing it next year during the Browers Festival.
No, I'm like, if
Just
so, can we get it done after or before? Because this poor town gets ripped up right at Bratwurst Festival time all the time. That, or,
If I'm wrong, but if we don't go out to bid and we don't decide anything until August, we might not see anybody pave until spring.
probably not.
Right, because the weather.
Because right now, all these contractors are getting booked up now,
Yeah.
and,
Timberline's is busy.
yeah.
I mean,
But at least it would be out and awarded, and it would be one of the first projects they do next year.
yeah, we've got a lot of streets to do too, so that's, you know, obviously yeah, probably. But they're advertising now, so.
So Bratwurst Festival 2022, it should be good.
If you want me to hit Bratwurst Festival, we'll make it happen.
Okay. So,
I'd just like to make a statement. Biggest thing is I know this has come, I was on the last decision-making on not selling the property. I know Sis Love, she was very vocal about not selling the lot as well. I guess my decision before is it was an investment in the entire city of not selling any parking lot. But I know since then we sold Baker's, and that benefited them greatly, and that allowed them to, you know, greatly increase their business and size, and I don't know. It just, even though the parking lots behind Baker's and Dillinger's, it seems as though, you know, it's being only used by those two people, it can be used by anybody. I mean, we just have to keep the idea that, you know, if there's enforcement across the board on all the lots, then it won't necessarily just be for two businesses, so.
since I wasn't here yet when Baker's lot got sold, what condition was that in when we sold it to Baker's?
It needed paved. It needed paved. You know, and then we got that other parking lot that would be nice to be able to get rid of. I mean, right behind Burger King. It doesn't do anything. You gotta go down.
Wendy's.
I mean,
That's what he meant. We know what you meant.
Wendy's, not Burger King, Wendy's. I mean, so,
That or we get a group to put hay meters in there.
so. I guess you know, and then, just, this is very controversial, but, you know, if we would sell the lot behind Dillinger's, then I would say, hey, economic development, how would you like to have the lot right behind your place? You know, I mean, what I'm saying is it seems as though we sell one, we might as well start selling all of them. And then that would be a radical a radical change to
There-
the dynamics of the entire city.
There will
I
be no
think
more
that would-
public parking.
I think that would really hurt us in the future, totally. So,
I think you had a good point about Baker's. I mean, as they've grown with their sales and, you know, I'm sure they are still planning on to do whatever they were gonna do there. And, you know, unfortunately with Gus's gone, it gave them the perfect opportunity to expand, and there wasn't much of a parking lot that we owned. It was mainly used by Baker's and Gus's, so.
Our lot was kind of an island.
Yeah.
In the middle of all that stuff.
well, and it was always a cut through there as well. I mean, it was.
What's your opinion, Mr. Wagner? Do you feel comfortable about taking on this project and using the capital outlay money for that? What's your opinion?
Well, I think it's a great investment in our community. I think just showing that we're gonna invest for these businesses that have a nice place to park, or other residents coming in, or other people visiting Bucyrus, I think it just adds more, can't think of the right word I wanna use, but it's just the impression of.
Aesthetics?
It's gonna give,
Gives it a nice look?
yeah.
What? Mrs. Chair.
One question, are we going to enforce the parking? Because I'm sorry, if we're going to spend $120,000 on Lot 3, estimated, and they're going to have a wagon sit there for another 3 years after they pave it, that hasn't even been moved, let alone whatever else. Are we going to enforce that and make them enforce the parking that, you know, you just can't just park there indefinitely?
Well, I think you're right, I agree with you, we're gonna have to do something for those kind of vehicles or trailers that have been sitting there.
Because behind the Legion, I don't see vehicles sitting behind the
They
Legion.
come and go. Well, but
There
I
has been.
understand you're talking about a different place of business in the Crazy Fox and the Weaver.
Correct.
Where people live upstairs, but you can't leave stuff sit there if we're gonna spend that kind of money. We're gonna have to do something. I agree.
And if they're going to use that for their residents, shouldn't they have to pay something for the use of that? If they're going to be living there and always parking there, because there's really no parking in front of the building other than, what, 4 spots? Between the square to Poplar is only maybe, what, 3 car spots on both sides of the street, let alone there's, what, 1 or 2 spots on the Poplar Street, if there's any.
How many people park in that lot? I don't notice many on the next lot.
Right.
The next lot's used by,
Scat vehicles.
Used to be, they now got a garage.
okay, good. But
Yeah.
Maybe the people that are living upstairs.
We'll have to move their vehicles.
Like
Yeah.
Brian at the Crazy Fox and say, hey, they're living here, you're gonna have to get permission for them people to park over here. Maybe we can have some kind of a gentleman's agreement, look, city's investing all this money, we can't have these people staying here 7 days in a row, or, you know, this parking lot's gotta be kept open. I don't know how we do that, but.
I agree, I think we need to do something
I was
to,
gonna say, other communities, we should really look into it, like Columbus. For my daughter to park on the street at her apartment in Columbus, she had to pay for a parking pass. And even then, her car couldn't sit there for more than 72 hours at a time. Even with her parking pass, it had to move to show that it was still a mobile car. I mean,
Well, I have
that's,
to move in front of my house.
that's something that we could look into, like, hey, if you wanna park here, if Brian can't come up with an agreement with the guy with the lot that's not, you know, they used to have scat, if you want to park here, maybe the city can sell you a parking pass and you still have to move the vehicle.
Then we have to pay somebody to sell the pass, somebody to enforce the pass, and then it's gonna cost us more money, it's gonna make us. But if I could, I was gonna say, Bruce and I have talked with Brian a couple times, and I think he's very reasonable and very easy to work with, and I think, you know, if anybody can get that agreement done, you know, with Blackford's, with that lot behind there, I think that Brian probably could be pretty successful at that, so I think that's
Especially
definitely something
Mr.
to reach out to
Blackford's.
him and let him know that, hey, we're working, because he's been wanting to get this project done for how long now, too? And if we reach out and say, hey, we're gonna try to make this happen, I think he would work with us to do what we need done.
We got an
Mr.
extra
Mead?
20 grand, we could put parking meters in.
Then you have to hire a marketing man.
Hey, do it for whatever he collects.
Sidewalks.
Then we have to pay real estate taxes on it,
Really?
if we're making
Yep.
money off of it. When we used to have meters, we collected about enough to cover the real estate taxes every year, so it didn't pay for the upkeep of the parking lot.
That was just an idea, I didn't know.
Well, if there's, I will make a motion to proceed.
Second.
Sorry.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, all in favor of proceeding further and finding out more and maybe,
Well, we're gonna,
having,
we're gonna go through with it, right? Instead of being an investigation.
right, I
Okay.
would say,
That's-
maybe have the people involved come to the meeting
It's
where we
to
vote on it?
proceed, to go
Right.
forth with the,
So that's perfect.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion passes.
So now we could go to finance.
I like to amend that to declare that as an emergency.
Declare that as an emergency. Okay, and does that go to full council then?
It's got to go to finance.
Okay, so emergency to finance?
No, emergency to proceed, otherwise we got to go through 3 readings.
All right, so it's emergency to proceed. All still in favor of emergency? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Aye.
Just making sure that we don't not dot our i's and cross our t's. Okay, so the ODNR reservoir agreement.
That's great.
Fishing, that's the fishing agreement, right?
Yes,
Okay.
and as you, I just found out about this a couple weeks ago from Rebecca. This actually expired in August of 20 with ODNR, and the new one is actually good for 25 years. And the only thing that changed is they added revised code 3767.32, which is about litter. I looked it up, and then they added 7 and 8 compared to the old one. So it's just about them being allowed to come, and they can get on the reservoirs, and it's allowed for public fishing, and it's just an agreement that expired, and we need to get it renewed.
Okay, what's the bit about litter?
It was just a whole litter code about, you'll keep litter picked up, and if who's ever out there using it, will keep it picked up. There's like A through Z. I didn't print them all off. It's just referring to litter and keeping the reservoirs clean.
Has the dumping that was going on out at the Pines, has that pretty much stopped at this point?
Well, yeah, it's gated off.
Right, so people aren't,
Okay. And in the new agreement, they eliminated the Pines, I do believe.
No, still
No.
on.
That's the old. Oh, I don't have it back yet.
1, 3, 4.
Yeah, it's up in the middle of it, it says 1, 3, and 4, and crossroads. So we just,
Where's it say?
we don't need legislation to allow us to enter into this fishing agreement.
And the benefits are tremendous. I mean, the benefits are wonderful. I mean, they bring the fish and they check and see what kind of fish we might need, and, oh man, that's fantastic.
Making a motion?
Yeah, I so move.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we move to send this to full council to, to approve and move? Okay,
I suppose this probably ought to be emergency too.
Yeah, I
Yes,
think
as
since
an
it's
emergency.
late Signing it,
Yeah.
I second that.
We still agree it's an emergency.
all right, everybody agrees? Thank you. All right, now there's something on here about land bank properties?
I can speak to that. Mayor and I are both board members of the land bank, and 3 properties that the city has interest in, and I'm going to explain there's a difference. between a couple of them. 333 Water Street is one that was torn down under the previous grant program, and that grant program required the land bank to maintain ownership of it for 3 years before the deed was transferred. That 3 years has expired. It's one of the houses down off of Lane Street near the soccer complex that the soccer people are already using this land, but it's still deeded to the land bank. It needs to be titled over to the, or deeded over to the city with the rest of the contiguous properties there. So that 3-year time period has expired. So we need to accept ownership of that to the city from the land bank. And then the next two, you got 411 Wallace, which was just torn down, as well as 822 Woodlawn. Those were part of a different program. They weren't a federal grant. This was county money that was used, so there was no requirement to hold it for the 3 years. So while they were just torn down, 411 is a buildable lot. The law director is interested in this because when we've lost out on revenue from it being vacant for the last several years, lost water and trash and all the revenue there, to be able to put it back up and sell it. There's several properties that I think they're in the process of putting a list together that they want to sell. He just wants to add this to that list. We take it from the land bank for free. It can be auctioned off. We make a little bit of the money back. 822 Woodlawn, law director explains that's part of that whole area where we already own several other parcels, and he's trying to make it
He's waiting
more.
for that other one.
He's just trying to make it a nicer, more lucrative package for maybe somebody who wants to come in and build several houses or things. So those are the three properties, and they're saying that we need emergency legislation requesting the transfer of, or allowing the law director to accept the transfer of these three properties from the land bank to the city.
I make a motion to go ahead and transfer these and accept them
As emergency.
as an emergency.
And I second Bruce's emergency.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Awesome. Okay, the next on our list right here is the approval of minutes, which none of the minutes were corrected. Vicki, I know you were bringing minutes here tonight. Would you be able to leave your notes so we can see what we've missed or didn't miss to get these corrected by any chance?
All you have to do is go to the audio recordings, everything's there. I'm not giving up my nose, sorry.
Okay.
I
That's
mean,
right.
you know, somebody's got to do some work here,
Right.
other than me.
Well, I'm thinking a lot of work was done, but yeah, I get this. You touched on a bunch of stuff and I left town. So it's not fresh in my head to be able to even help with the corrections. That's why I was
Well, and I guess
asking.
it could just be done
But
by
that's fine. All right, so we will hold the minutes for another time. And open projects, I know the first open project was brought in by Mr. Hart. I know he wanted us to talk about this. What all do we need to do to allow them to make the changes?
I think we just need to make a motion to give approval for the project to move forward, don't we?
Does it have to be legislation, or can it just be a discussion? It's just like giving permission, isn't it?
Okay, that's what
I
he just
think
said.
It
Yeah.
just needs to be reflected in the minutes.
So, is anyone against it?
I can't, I'm
I
not.
imagine why they would
Bruce?
be.
What?
What do you,
Are
any
you
feelings
against
on?
making the
Oh,
park
that-
better?
Yeah, that's fine. I don't.
I guess I will give you guys a little bit more too that I do know. There's the currently right now, which it just got repaired. There's the little book library thing that sits right there in the front of the, like when you,
Yes.
if you're looking right off of Walnut Street. That actually just got completely repaired and fixed and within a week was destroyed again. So to efforts of helping to maybe preserve that, and in a sense, they're gonna move it further back in the lot, so that way the sign will be up towards the front of the street. So they're hoping that that'll kind of help out with maybe relocating to get it from getting destroyed as often too, so. But otherwise, yeah, like Elwood said, Mr. Kennedy's gonna take care of doing the landscaping work and getting the mulch and doing all the, around the area where it'll be, so.
I know I was in Kiwanis when we went ahead and poured the concrete and stained to make it look like bricks. And I don't remember us even coming to the city then. I think we just did it.
Well, now we're asking before we do.
Asking forgiveness.
Yeah.
Well, no, actually, I think that was still owned by the Picking family at that point. So I think Helen made sure everything got done before she donated it.
I get-
Very smart woman.
Should we just take a straw vote of our committee that we?
I'm in favor.
I'm in favor.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
Yeah.
so
committee's in favor.
we, we'll
He's applying something that's gonna
make things
make
better.
it look,
Yes.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's
I'm
representing
all
picking.
for
Yeah.
doing some of this stuff to make things look better and
And
represent.
it's gonna be all from donations from
I
outside
would
too.
like him to look into getting a plaque or something to explain, because there's so much history there that it's awesome. I mean, and I don't even know if maybe the historical group statewide would help with something like that, with how old it is.
We can probably put it on the back of that sign too.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I'm saying, just looking into something to just, because there's a lot of history that he should be very proud of.
Back of the sign's covered already.
Whoops.
It's gonna have a blue K on it.
Catalogs.
That's right, yeah.
All right, so we are unanimous in telling them to go ahead, and if you'd like to pass that word.
I'll talk to Elwood when I see him in church.
All right, so do we have any other open projects we wish to speak about tonight? I do again request that list. All right, so at 7:22, I will end public lands.
I call finance to order at 7:22. I'm just gonna hand it over to Joyce. We have our list of appropriations.
First thing, in the general fund, we need to appropriate from unappropriated general funds in Program 1, Security of Persons and Property, under the Police Department, $340.52 to materials and supplies, $1,555 to capital outlay. The $340.52 is from donations to Safety Town, and the $1,555 is from donations to the K-9 program. So we just need to get these in the line so they can be used. Then, as I explained Tuesday, in the Street Construction Maintenance and Repair Fund, under Street Construction Maintenance and Repair and Capital Outlay, we need to appropriate $500,000 to cover the 2021 Mill and Pave Street Program for this year. We just did not appropriate enough at the end of the year to cover what we've approved, so that needs adjusted.
That's all right.
And we also received a new grant, well, we haven't received it yet, we're in process. They're awarding us a grant for the airport. Under Fund 277, this is the Airport Coronavirus Response Grant Program. I talked to Kevin Dutray today about that and what it can be used for. It's basically for operating expenses at the airport, and it's in the amount of $32,000. So we need to appropriate that from unappropriated airport coronavirus response funds. Then we need to appropriate from unappropriated waterworks funds in the Waterworks Distribution Department, $2,000 to contractual services, and this appropriation is needed to pay the AEP bills for the pumping stations on the county water lines. We have one at the water tower in North Robinson, and there is another one, and I forget where Calb told me that one is. But anyway, since we've taken over these county water lines, we have a couple more AEP bills, and I'm gonna put in a separate expense line just so that we can see what our expenses are for these out of the city lines. Then we created a county sewer maintenance fund at the beginning of the year, knowing that we were going to be taking over these sewer plants. We'll be receiving the money here in the next week. So under that county sewer maintenance fund, Department 7536, sewer replacement, we need to appropriate from unappropriated funds $20,000 to contractual services and $40,000 to materials and supplies. I had talked to Mr. Calb in the utility office, and he felt this should cover us for what we've been doing this year. So these appropriations are needed to pay the AEP bills and maintenance for the county sewer plants. Then I have an additional one, so I'm asking for forgiveness on this one. For the swimming pool, the kids are eating us right out of the concession stand. Mr. Wagner had to go resupply again today, and we need to appropriate from unappropriated pool funds $1,000 to materials and supplies to keep the kids fed out of the pool.
Does the money that they sell not pay for the kids'
Well, it
stuff?
does, but it still has to be kind of recycled into appropriations. We can't just take what comes in directly and pay a bill if we've already used up the appropriation we had. So
The money that they spend when it comes in is a receipt.
Right.
So we only put so much money in for what we were gonna sell. Well, we're selling more than what we anticipated,
That's a
so we
good
didn't
problem.
budget enough money to be able to buy enough to last for the rest of the year.
So we brought in $6,000 for the concession stand in June. And,
Not like when we do stuff, we
Budget
sell
was
it,
only
buy
8
more, they gotta go.
yeah,
So we're probably already at some.
right. So Mr. Wagner and I just talked about this today. I didn't know about it on Tuesday, or I would have referred it then.
That must mean the pool's full all the time too, so that's a good thing.
Did we not get a list of all?
Yeah.
Jim, you had it.
Yeah.
Couldn't find it.
He's asking about the street construction fund, Joyce.
Yeah.
Must have passed it.
I thought that was for 2022.
That was the 50,000 for engineering that we appropriated previously.
Okay.
And
we've
that was for
already
2022.
appropriated. Yeah, we've
And-
already appropriated, that's already been through.
That's already been done, yes. This is for this year's project. That engineering is to plan for next year so that we can go out to bid earlier and get things done before the Bratwurst Festival.
Okay. Before the Bratwurst. The whole town's right around the Bratwurst.
We actually do ask them to work around the festival. I mean, get it
Yeah, I
done
know,
either
it's-
before or
that's a hard
after.
thing
But
to do.
That's like all the stuff that gets done out by the school.
You have any more questions?
No, sir.
Okay. Kevin's got a question.
I was getting ready to make a motion when everybody's done with their questions.
Bruce, got any questions? Okay.
I'll request emergency legislation approving these appropriations.
Okay, I have a first. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, if there's no other discussion, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passed unanimously. All right. Lateral transfers.
As you remember, the fire chief was in probably a month or so ago, and we talked about lateral transfers. Since then, we've met with the police department and met with their union. And they haven't decided yet if they want to allow that. There's a lot of things that they need to consider, like the fire department did. But I guess my suggestion is if we could do legislation that would just allow lateral transfers in police, fire, and ASME, as long as there's an MOU in place with the current union. Because I have to have legislation to go to civil service for us to allow the higher lateral transfers without giving.
Would we want to say if there's an MOU or if it's put into the next contract to word it
You
both
could word it
ways?
that way.
That way we don't have to come back and change it.
Yep.
And has the ASME union already offered an opinion?
I haven't talked to them, I've talked to the foremen, and this is where that came from. Because as we look at who we have coming up through the ranks, and with EPA, now we have to have a backup operator of record in our water distribution department, we've never had to have before. So we advertised about a year ago or 2 years ago for a backup for Tim Wood in the wastewater, and we didn't get nobody. So we thought if we could do lateral transfers and ask me, we might be able to get somebody to transfer. And if it's in there, then we can go ahead and do it, and I figured I'd cover all three that way.
Well, and regardless, if we word it that you have to have an MOU or it being contracted, if they're not in favor of it, you're not going to be able to do it.
Correct.
So, okay.
That way I don't have to, I have one piece of legislation for civil service. That was my thought.
Rather than doing it 3 separate
Yes.
times. All right.
So if you're doing these lateral transfers and you've got somebody that's worked for the city fire department for 10 years and you do a lateral transfer for, say, somebody from Marion with 15 years, they bring that seniority with them.
Well, it's part of, like, if you read through, yeah, they would bring part of it. However, and I don't have it in front of me.
Seniority or continuity of service?
Well, they get credit for part of it. It's how they got it wrote up in their MOU. And I think it's in the packet, but I don't have it out in front of me. But they are gonna give them credit for years of service.
And they can bypass civil service testing.
Yes, but their vacation amount changes, if I remember right. I don't know, Joyce, if you had read it or not. But they do, that's some of the things the police department's working through. What do you allow them to bring with them? How much vacation do they get if they got 10 years somewhere else? So there's a lot of things that go into it, and the fire department union actually wrote theirs up. So they were in favor of it, and they passed it. So.
That is a big deal when it comes to seniority and people that's dedicated their lives here for somebody else's time.
I agree.
So that's a big bite for the fire department, so.
Is there any way to make that piece of legislation so it doesn't have to be renewed every year and?
That's why I think I was suggesting if we add that line, not just an MOU, or if it's within the union contract, then we never have to change it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Any questions, Bruce?
I'll request, do you need this as an emergency?
I would, with what we have coming up for EMS, I would say yes.
I'll request emergency legislation authorizing the service director to enter into an agreement with the Civil Service Commission to allow lateral transfers with all three unions as long as there is either an MOU or a contractual agreement.
To be entered into the contract.
Into the respective union contracts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Is there any other discussion, questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign.
Rebecca, it's to be entered into their new contracts, so,
As an
That's
emergency.
part of contract negotiations, so.
yeah, that's what I want it to be a part of.
Okay. Motion passed unanimously. All right. As we see here, we have quite a few minutes, except for the May 24th, which we'll have to work on getting that one.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I need to leave, but I just wanted to mention that I gave everyone a packet of information of the draft audit report for everyone to look at. And this is a draft and should not be quoted or published in any communication medium.
Yeah. Cannot go
The
out.
final report cannot be released until it's been filed and approved for release by the state auditor.
Okay.
So this is just informational purposes, and I will see if I can get some dates from Perry and Associates when they may be available for a teleconference, and then we can determine when we can do that.
That'd be great. All right, thank you, Joyce. Anybody else have a question for Joyce?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you.
All right, as you see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 special finance and finance regular meetings. And I presume they're, from some of these, I know they're not all corrected.
Do you see bold type?
There's some, but they're not all completely correct, if I'm not mistaken, some of these.
That's what her note said.
So, okay. Well,
I think unfortunately somebody's got to sit down and listen to the audio recording again and make sure that everything's correct. It's been long enough that we're not going to be able to recite from memory any of
No,
this stuff.
definitely not going to recite from memory. figure out how we can sit down with you, Rebecca, to go through this, to get these.
You can say amen. You can say amen.
Bring our peanut butter and jelly sandwich and our pillow.
Okay. We will try to get this done quickly as we can. Preferably if we can get it done in the next 2 weeks, that'd be great. We'll work on these. And we'll try to get that May 24th meeting. I do believe that was when we had our executive session for hiring. So that won't be too much there on that, but we'll figure that one out.
I don't think that one actually made.
But it was executive session, which we went into executive session, we came out of
Still
executive
started and
session.
ended a meeting.
And that's basically what, but we'll clarify the times and that and go from there. With that, if there's nothing else from the committee, I will recess finance at 7:37.
And I'll call economic development to order at 7:37 p.m. Up first on the list, we have Tax Incentive Review Board. I will read the letter from Ms. Wolf. Addressed May 21st, 2021. Dear Clerk, the Crawford County Tax Incentive Review Council recently met to review the tax abatement agreements for your jurisdiction. This review was done in conjunction with the annual report filed March 31, 2021 by the Enterprise Zone Manager and is for the period ending December 31, 2020. Enclosed, you will find the recommendations made by the Tax Incentive Review Council as required by the Ohio Revised Code, Section 5709.85. A legislative authority that receives from a Tax Incentive Review Council written recommendation shall, within 60 days after receipt, hold a meeting and vote to accept, reject, or modify all or any portion of the recommendations. Should you have any questions, please feel free to contact the Enterprise Zone Manager for your jurisdiction or me. Sincerely, Joan Wolf, Chairman of the Tax Incentive Review Council. And you'll have in the back is the abatement for Props for Us LLC, and it was approved by the committee that day and was forwarded on to us for our approval. So I'm just seeking a motion to approve this and move this on to full council.
So moved.
I just have one question. I don't know that it matters, but it's dated May 21. Why are we just seeing this in the middle of July?
You'd have to ask Ms. Wolf why it took us, I think we actually, if I remember correctly, the meeting didn't take place in May because of a delay, and it didn't take place until June.
Well, it says in the letter they recently met to review it, and the review was done and filed on March 31st. I'm just asking a question.
Like I said, you have to ask Joan.
That March 31st, that's the date that, would you read that one more time, what you just said about the March 31st?
The Crawford County Tax Incentive Review Council recently met to review the tax abatement agreements for your jurisdiction. This review was done in conjunction with the annual report filed March 31st. Okay.
Yeah, every year, you know, when I was an enterprise zone manager, I had to file a report,
Okay.
and it was due the 31st of March.
But her letter's dated May 21,
Yeah.
and here we are, July 8th.
It says that they
Well,
met on the
but
9th.
the date doesn't say that they met, then.
It says they met on the
Saying-
19th
Okay, so they met the 19th.
Yeah,
of May.
of May.
Yeah, sorry, I had my month off.
Just asking a question. I'll second the motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Up next, we have the approval of minutes. Our minutes are very short because we haven't discussed a lot in the last few months. So I don't see that there's any corrections that need to be made to them, so I'll ask for a motion to approve them.
So moved.
Are we approving them together?
Yes, both
Second.
sets. Sorry.
May 6th and April 22nd.
Sorry, I should have.
Yeah, April
declared
22 and
dates. I
May 6.
apologize. Yep. Minutes for, May 6th and April 22nd. I have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, and we're not going to delve into open projects at this point in time. 'cause
Actually, I do have one I'd like to bring up.
Okay, well, trying not to add more than what we got already.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Time sensitive. So,
if you look back at that one on May the 6th, we had a presentation about the designated outdoor refreshment area. And the committee has been meeting on that, and they've come up with a application that the next step is for the service director to schedule a public hearing. There has to be, I believe, it's either a 2-week or 20-day window of advertising for that. So what we need, or what we need to do is to request legislation authorizing the service director to advertise and hold a public hearing, which is the next step in the process.
That sounded like a motion to me.
I am making that a motion as an
Second.
emergency.
All right, we got a motion and a second to give Mr. Wagner the ability to advertise for a public hearing for our DORA application. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Sorry, I cut you off on that, Kevin, because that is something I know the community's looking forward to, so.
You called and asked me to make sure we
I
did
know.
it tonight.
Lots of things going on,
Yep.
so, thank you for reminding me.
Yep.
With nothing else then, I'm not gonna add to the list of minutes and things that we have to take care of already, so, I'll recess at 7:41 PM.
I'm going to call health and safety order at 7:42. Before you, you have 3 separate sets of minutes, and as I went back through to double check them all, Mrs. DeShawn had given us a list, and I'll go through them in order. The April 27th minutes are in front of you. Those are draft minutes not yet approved. The May 6th minutes were actually already approved on May 20th. And so those don't need any action taken. And then the May 20th minutes are also in front of you. So you've got minutes for April 27 and May 20th that have not yet been approved. So please step forward.
Vicki DeShawn, 1108 Hillcrest Drive. Your first Health and Safety Committee minutes for April 27th, 21. Back on June the 3rd, 2021 committee meeting, I had reported out that Chairperson Myers had not amended the caption of the committee meeting minutes to read Tuesday instead of Thursday.
Thought I had it all.
At that meeting, you had pointed out, or you had amended the minutes to go from a regular to a special meeting. And then, again, I reported out that, Tuesday or Thursday needed to be Tuesday.
I listened back to the audio recording and everything, and I missed that. Thanks. Sorry.
Then on the May 6th minutes, I know you indicated that they were approved on May 20th. But on May 20th, when you read the minutes that were approved, they were read as minutes for April 27th, 2021, time starting at 6:19 p.m. and ending at 6:28 p.m. And at the June 3rd meeting, I corrected that identification and said it should actually have stated May 6th, 2021, beginning time of 6:27 p.m., ending time of 6:30 p.m.
So
the
if I could
minutes that
interrupt you
were
on those,
approved
do
at
we,
May 20th,
do we just need to reapprove these as amended, or?
well, this is my thought. You do what you want with it. The minutes that were actually approved on May 20th were the minutes that were recited as Thursday, May 6th.
Right.
To me, I think these minutes that were approved on May 20th, it should be what you approved. And you approved the April 27th, 2021. Then these minutes that you presented tonight that have the correct date and time, I personally feel they should be identified as amended Health and Safety Committee meeting minutes. And then down at the bottom of tonight's minutes, if they're approved tonight, you would state that those were approved tonight's date.
As amended with tonight's
Right.
dates, understood.
I mean, to me, for a paper trail purpose,
I'm fine with that.
and if someone's, looking at the audio recording, it flows.
I'm fine with that.
Next,
I was feeling really good until you stood up there.
the Thursday, May 20th meeting minutes. You have the start date as 6:29 PM. The audio recording will confirm that it actually started at 6:27 PM. Then the second paragraph states, minutes from the May 6, 2021 Health and Safety meeting were presented. Well, we're back to the audio confirms that you referred to the minutes as the April 27th. So, I mean, you may have presented the minutes that really were for May 6th, but in the audio, you're saying the minutes for April 27th. So,
See you in 2 weeks.
thank you.
Yeah, you're not even gonna dabble in. Son of a gun. I'm not gonna lie, I was feeling like I was on top of things. All right. We'll close health and safety at 7:47. Thanks for your time.
Call planning to 7:47.
Sure you wanna do this?
I was gonna say, I move that we close.
It might not be that bad.
Is there anything we needed to talk about in plating? Because you don't want to look at the minutes.
Go ahead, Mark, I'm gonna make your day. Your minutes are fine.
See?
I'm just looking and,
They're short.
okay. Did anybody have any questions on the plating minutes? So do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Okay, any other discussion? Otherwise, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passed. All right, any open projects? Please think of anything on the open project list, and I will try to see if we can get it updated and try to close a lot of the ones we have. With that, yes.
Next public participation.
Oh, not yet. I haven't closed it yet.
I just would like to be able to, maybe if the committee could readdress as the plating committee. We had a discussion 2 years ago, and I'm sure it's still on the open projects list, when we were talking about signage downtown. For some reason, in years past, the thought was that, oh, we don't want to clutter our downtown with signs that stuck out from the face of the buildings. They wanted to have all the signs so they were flush with the buildings.
Right.
And then as a committee back then, as of 2 years ago, we decided that now you're driving downtown and you're driving along and you're already 2 blocks past the business you were hunting for, because the sign is flush with the building
And not hanging out.
and not sticking out perpendicular to the building. And we had the discussion, and I think it was pretty much a consensus that we were going to do something about allowing the sign to be perpendicular to the business establishment.
Right. I do.
And I would like to see us see if we could have that discussion again
I'll see if I can
and
find
move it
those.
forward and help the businesses downtown.
I remember you guys going up there and meeting.
Yeah, we had met
We marked
downtown.
it.
We met at the art park.
Yeah, we met at the art park.
I wasn't on the committee at that point, but I remember you guys doing that.
And I don't really believe that makes the business, the downtown, a cluttered feeling. I think it makes it inviting.
Gives it character.
Yeah, and, you know, people are downtown to patronize the businesses, so.
If I remember correctly, and maybe double check with Landon, but I think the topic or the way that came up in conversation at that time was if a business so chose to do it, they still could get a variance to allow that.
We were just going to give them more square footage.
That's
and,
correct.
And they were going to be able to project
Yeah.
out from their face of their building.
Okay.
So we're allowing neon signs,
Hey,
Why
that
not?
sounds good to me.
little Las Vegas.
Little cowboy on a horse, back and forth. That's it.
Okay. All right, we will get some more information on that and bring that up at the next committee meeting. So with that, I will adjourn plating at 7:52 PM.
Mr. McKeever?
Yes.
I hate to maybe go back to finance, but on the parking, sorry Doug, but the parking lot, we didn't give a total, and if you total all that up, you're past the 427. So do we want to bid just the 3 parking lots?
Yeah.
With
400,000.
No,
400,000.
I came up with 300.
Yeah, it's under 400.
Well, it is, but there's no 10% contingency in there. Oh. So if you add 40,000 to that, you're at 430. Now, we could do the street garage as an alternate and just see what the other 3 come in at, and then it just wouldn't exceed the 398, if that's what you want.
If you did it that way and they came in higher, then could we go back and amend it to increase the dollar amount?
Well, you could, yeah, I'd have to come back to you to ask for it.
That might be the cleanest way, since we've already met and adjourned.
We just didn't add no 10% in there for all of it, and we would be pushing it, I think.
All right.
Well, you're already, we've already basically put the debate out there for the 50,000 on next year's projects. I mean, do you think the same people that are bidding on that kind of stuff will bid on our parking lots?
Yeah, I think we might get a couple other ones that might bid, like from Marion but I'm just afraid that amount, we're gonna be short if we don't, with that 10% not in there. We can try it, just not to exceed the 398,602 or whatever that it totals.
We can amend it at the next council.
We could do that, or is it too late to wait for bid opening when you realize you need more money? Or do you need?
Well, I could come back to you if it comes back, we just put it out the bid for the total and see what it is, but there's no 10% in there anywhere. So I just wanted to bring it up, so we can do it the way it is, and I can come back to you if I have to.
My opinion's whatever gets the ball rolling the fastest, we've already met and adjourned that committee tonight. And
Well, then,
let's get
we'll
it
go with the
moving.
total, and if it comes back higher than what we anticipated,
Then
or
we can change it.
I'll come back to you.
That'll work too, because
All
I'll
right.
keep the rest of the.
That's fine, I just didn't want to run into a problem.
We'll do it as an emergency, that way you're right.
Okay. All right, sorry to
Good thinking, Jeff.
backtrack, but
Okay. Public participation. Vicki.
Vicki DeShawn, 1108 Hillcrest Drive. Just a reminder that we're still needing to prepare what I call standard cover sheet for the May 6, 2021 joint regular committee meetings. That's the sheet that identifies the members that are present at the joint committee meetings, when the meeting started and who called it to order, as well as the public participation. And that has not been prepared. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? All right, I'm asking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Doug, you're late.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.